The Amulet of Universal Values, The Birth and Growth of Roman Law. When I sat down at my computer to write this essay, the first thing that flashed through my mind was a quote by philosopher of science Karl Popper: "Democracy is the process that prevents the worst from happening." A process is a set of rules defined in time and space. It provides the conditions for something to exist and ensures its proper functioning. Universal values are a set of behavioral norms and essential rights that every human being must enjoy in order to protect themselves. These values must be safeguarded. Human society must provide the sufficient and necessary conditions to protect them. These conditions are laws, and the manifestation of law is process. At this point, a counterexample emerged in my mind. In some authoritarian regimes, constitutions have been issued that contain no procedural justice whatsoever, where the will of the ruler alone becomes law. Such systems would have shocked even the early Romans under kingship. They might rise from their graves and ask, "What kind of beastly age is this?" From around 753 BCE to 509 BCE, Rome was under monarchical rule. Understanding Roman law during this period is challenging because the city of Rome was sacked and burned by the Celts in 387 BCE, leading to the loss of nearly all pre-existing documents. Historians have tried to reconstruct the legal framework of this era. The primary administrative bodies were the king, the Senate, and the popular assembly. The Senate's membership had two possible origins: either the king selected them from among the clans, or they were heads of influential families. The assembly was composed of all adult males. Both the Senate and the assembly participated in the process of selecting the king. Initially, the king was primarily responsible for major religious duties and for mediating between the community and the gods. Later, he also resolved disputes and led the army in wartime. The king was likely of Etruscan origin. The Senate began with 100 members and later expanded to 300, all of whom were aristocrats. The Senate had no fixed powers but served as an advisory body to the king and assumed administrative authority during interregnum periods. While Roman historians claimed the assembly also participated in legislation, modern scholars believe it mainly handled religious rituals and the coronation of kings. The most admirable aspect of Roman law during the monarchy is its reflexivity. Though the king appointed the Senate also participated in selecting the king. This placed Roman law above the Code of Hammurabi of ancient Babylon. Contemporary American scholar Harold Berman once remarked that if law is not revered, it becomes a dead letter. Those who desecrate and disregard the law are often its very makers and enforcers. Roman law, therefore, is genuine law, the true source of modern law. With the establishment of the Roman Republic, the Senate, magistrates, and popular assemblies became the main administrative bodies. Most historians believe that after overthrowing the monarchy, the leading Roman families retained power through the Senate. When specific duties arose, the Senate delegated them to one or more magistrates. This led to a proliferation of official positions such as consuls, tribunes, decemvirs, and military tribunes with consular power. The Republican period saw many significant legal events. In 494 BCE, the Roman populace launched a famous plebeian secession, demanding political, legal, and social reforms to balance aristocratic and plebeian power. Around the early 5th century BCE, the alphabet and written language entered Rome, enabling legal documents such as contracts and wills to be recorded in writing. Even before the Republic's establishment in 509 BCE, Romans lived under customary law, which was passed down orally and governed civil and family relations. This customary law applied only to Roman citizens and thus was called civil law. After the Republic was established, some Romans felt that customary law allowed too much judicial discretion and called for codified laws. In 451 BCE, a decemvirate was formed to draft written laws. By 449 BCE, they completed the Law of the 12 Tables, which codified centuries of customary law and became the foundation of Roman law. Named for being inscribed on 12 bronze, or painted wooden, tablets, the law addressed various areas, including civil law for citizens, public law, and religious law. The 12 Tables are regarded as the origin of written law and one of the foundations of the civil law tradition in continental Europe. The law covered areas such as summons, trials, compensation, paternal authority, inheritance and guardianship, property and possession, houses and land, private offenses, public law, and religious law. The law limited aristocratic power, protected private property, and explicitly prohibited intermarriage between patricians and plebeians. The establishment of private property rights was a major milestone in human history. These rights are a key marker of individual identity and serve as a moral safeguard for each person. They laid the groundwork for the principle of structural equivalence between the individual and humanity as a whole and provided the foundation for natural law. As the Republic expanded its territory, its population became more diverse. Disputes arose not only among citizens but also involved non-citizens residing or traveling within Roman territory. Since civil law applied only to citizens, this led to the development of the jus gentium, or law of nations. The jus gentium applied to all people and was based on shared principles of human civilization. It eventually ascended to the domain of natural law, which posited a universal order governed by natural principles common to humans and animals alike, such as procreation and self-defense. These principles underlie key modern concepts such as liberty, equality, justice, and human rights. As members of the non-Western world, we often feel confused about our identity. Beyond knowing ourselves as someone's child or as a member of a profession, we often lack awareness of ourselves as political beings. The root cause lies in living in societies where rulers neither want you to realize you are human nor that you are a political animal. As Aristotle put it long ago, man is a political animal, an entity that defends its own identity and interests. That identity must be backed by political rights, which is the essence of citizenship. Roman law provides a model in this regard. It enshrined basic legal principles of modern rule of law through the rights of citizenship. Citizens were guaranteed legal equality, including property rights, marriage rights, and the right to sue. These rights were explicitly protected by law and contributed to the harmony and stability of Roman society. The Republic encouraged citizen participation in court and government, implementing electoral systems for consuls and judges and ensuring separation and balance of powers. Although early Roman law did not grant equal legal personality, and slaves were considered property, even they had limited rights, such as being able to hold property with their master's consent, which they could retain upon manumission. By the time of the Roman Empire, growing political and social complexity led to an increasingly complex legal system with diverse sources. By the late 3rd century BCE, a professional class of jurists emerged. These legal experts, though outside the judiciary, specialized in legal interpretation and published formal opinions. Their writings ushered in the golden age of Roman law, known as the Classical period. For the first time in history, law was treated as a field of study, not just a political tool. This elevated law into a domain of continual refinement and expansion, ultimately inspiring public reverence. One of the earliest professional jurists was Gaius, a prolific scholar whose writings included commentaries on the 12 Tables, provincial edicts, and municipal laws. His most famous work, the 4-volume Institutes, served as both a textbook and a template for the later institutes of Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, the first rigorous legal treatise in Western history. Other jurists such as Ulpian and Julius Paulus also contributed influential texts, allowing scholars to trace the evolution of Roman law before Justinian's time. By the 6th century, Emperor Justinian presided over a Roman world politically and culturally split between East and West. Though the Western Roman Empire had collapsed 50 years earlier, Justinian successfully reconquered parts of Italy and Spain. In the Eastern Empire, legal disorder made it imperative to unify and balance the law, culminating in the compilation of the Corpus Juris Civilis. This monumental effort was a crowning achievement of the Eastern Roman Empire. While it may have grown insular and obscure, this legal code ensured its place in history. A century before Justinian, Emperor Theodosius II had compiled the Theodosian Code, which collected imperial decrees from Constantine onward. Justinian's work went further, assembling 4 parts: the Codex, imperial edicts since Hadrian, the Digest, opinions of jurists, the Institutes, a legal textbook, and the Novelli, new laws issued after his death. The Digest, in particular, preserved often conflicting juristic viewpoints, offering deep insights into Roman legal development. That such a massive legal achievement occurred in the 6th century remains a marvel of human history. When the Corpus Juris Civilis was completed, the Western Roman Empire had long since fallen, and Europe had entered the Middle Ages. The Eastern Roman Empire turned inward and transitioned into Byzantine culture. In Europe, Roman judicial institutions collapsed. With no courts to implement Roman law and books prohibitively expensive, legal knowledge disappeared for centuries. It was not until the 11th century that a complete copy of the Corpus Juris Civilis was rediscovered in a northern Italian building. This reintroduced Europe to Roman law and enabled it to become a central subject in higher education. Some of the earliest universities, such as the University of Bologna, offered only two fields, theology and law. And the law they taught was Roman law, with the Corpus Juris Civilis as the primary text. Over the following centuries, the Corpus Juris Civilis became a foundational text for students in civil law countries. It is one of the most influential legal works in world history. The 19th-century German jurist Rudolf von Jhering remarked that the Romans conquered the world 3 times, first by force, then by religion, and finally by law. Roman law forms the basis of many modern legal systems. Civil law originates from Roman law. Most continental European countries and many Latin American countries were influenced by the Napoleonic Code, itself rooted in Roman tradition. Even in common law systems like England, Roman law, though not binding, remains a powerful theoretical authority. In Scotland, a hybrid of civil and common law endures. In conclusion, the Romans did more than codify laws and write legal texts. They invented political techniques that underpin many modern political systems and concepts: checks and balances, separation of powers, veto, quorum, filibuster, impeachment, public finance, usufruct, and regular elections. Even less common notions such as block voting can be traced back to Rome. Fernand Braudel, historian of the Annals School, emphasized in his works how legal systems, double-entry accounting, and insurance shaped economic development. His conclusion is clear: the development of capitalism relied fundamentally on human, especially political, techniques. His bell jar model vividly illustrates how the Roman legal system was the fountainhead of Western development. Today, the line between modern and primitive political regimes is clear: it depends on whether they operate under the bell jar of law. This remains the most effective litmus test of civilization.